You're on a cruise out of Miami, you've got a drink in your hand, the music's loud, and it feels like real life can't touch you at all. Here's the twist. Cruise ships are one of the fastest ways that I see good people turn a vacation into an arrest. And there's gonna be consequences that take you from the tiki bar to going behind bars. And if you have a lot to lose, if your name matters in the community, if your reputation is part of your livelihood, this just isn't embarrassing. It can be career altering. So today we're here to answer the big question. What are the most common reasons people get arrested on cruise ships and in international waters? And here's how we're gonna break it down. So number one, what gets people arrested on cruises more than anything else? Two, who actually has jurisdiction when you're out at sea? And number three, what changes when your ship departs from Palm Beach, Broward, or Miami-Dade? Four, what happens to your case when you dock back in Florida? And number five, what should you do in the moment to protect your rights and your reputation? I'm Adam Rosson. I'm a Florida criminal defense attorney, and me and my team, well, we see this pattern all the time. Smart, successful people, they take their vacation a little too far, and now you need a plan, and you need that plan fast. Because the moment security gets involved, no more conversations, it's evidence being collected. So now question number one, what gets people arrested on cruises more than anything? And the short answer is, well, all the fun stuff, right? Drugs, fights, and sex crimes. So let's break that down. Drugs are number one. I didn't think they'd catch that mistake. People forget that security at cruise terminals operate like airports in a lot of ways. There can be trained dogs. And this isn't theoretical. There are countless cases and stories of vacationers talking about drug dogs in the terminal and security doing targeted luggage pulls. But people say, well, Adam, do they really search our bags? And the answer from experienced cruisers is yes, especially at the big ports and especially when something flags. And let's say this is a 7 to 10 day Cheech and Chong cruise. Well, guess what? Since you brought enough for you and all your buddies, now you're getting arrested for drug trafficking. When that's just what your role was on the party. Some person brings the outfits, some person is the party planner. Well, guess what? You're the party favor supplier for the whole group, but now you're considered a drug trafficker. And the law doesn't care about your vacation mindset. It cares about, did you commit a crime and can they prove it? And that's it. And we see this play out all the time. There was a case recently, cruise departing from Miami, and authorities said that they found more than 100 vacuum sealed bags of marijuana in luggage. Now, to me, that sounds like a fun ship, but guess what? Not legal. And that's the kind of fact pattern where whether you meant it or not, the cops start looking at this again as trafficking, not just vacation fun. And if you've got controlled substances, especially multiples in large quantities with packaging that looks like distribution, or anything that can be framed as intent to sell, well, again, we're talking from just regular possession to possession with intent to drug trafficking and fast. And on these cruises, travelers often forget about the invisible threats. Well, you're traveling across borders. You're going through international waters. And even if you never intended to import anything, the government can treat moving drugs through ports and international routes as a much bigger deal than just getting caught at the beach or at your local bar or even in your own home. Now, the second bucket is violence. Cruises mix alcohol, close quarters, and ego. And I've seen cases start with somebody bumped me and end with a battery charge, security restraint, and then an arrest the moment the ship returns to port. We've seen this happen quite a bit when we're talking about the clubs at the cruise ships, the bars, all of those things. It happens, whether it's domestic related or just somebody there is creeping on you and your girl or your friends. And if you want a perfect example of how ship drama becomes Miami-Dade jail, well, look at this reported situation where a Minnesota mom was accused of tackling a teenager on a Carnival cruise, and the arrest happened after the ship docked at Port of Miami. And that's the reality. You may feel like you're in a floating world, a floating party, a floating hotel, but once you hit Miami-Dade, it can turn into a local criminal case real fast. There's a case here where someone described a coworker getting a call on disembark morning, was told to come down for a security check. They got handcuffed, questioned for hours. And that's the part people don't understand. A cruise can feel like this, again, this bubble, this fun ship, but the consequences don't wait for you to get your luggage. They're coming for you and they're coming for you quick. And the third bucket is sex offenses. Now, these are investigated aggressively and they can involve crew security, medical staff, federal or state involvement depending on where it happened and who is involved. Now look, picture this. You're having a blast on the cruise. It's night 3. Everybody knows night 3 is the white party. You're out there, you're dancing. It starts off with a little bit of the cha-cha. You move to the electric slide. Then guess who comes on? Akon comes on and you're grinding. There's emotion in the ocean, and before you know it, you're getting accused of a sex crime. Well, let me tell you, this stuff happens, and it happens all the time. So you need to be careful, because the same things that can happen in the nightclub down on Las Olas or South Beach or up in Palm Beach, it happens on the ships, in the club as well, because let's remember, when we're on these fun ships, it's one giant spring break party, whether you're in college, in your 30s or 40s. Because guess what? You leave the kids at home or you leave them in the cabin, and we're having some adult fun on these ships now. So drug possession, violent crimes, and sex crimes are the 3 most common crimes people get arrested for on a cruise ship. And the next question is one we get asked a lot. Well, who has the jurisdiction when you're out in international waters? And simply put, the classic lawyer example is, well, it depends. Sometimes more than one government, and sometimes both federal and state can be involved. But if something happens while the ship is still in Florida waters, or if it departed from a Florida port, so whether that's Miami, whether that's Fort Lauderdale, whether it's even Cape Canaveral or Tampa, wherever it may be, Florida and those specific counties can and still have jurisdiction. If something happens out on the high seas, well, if it's outside of any one state, federal law can kick in under maritime law. And if the ship is flagged in another country, or if you're docked in that country, well, could you end up spending a night in a Mexican prison? Absolutely. Okay, that country can have jurisdiction as well. But this is where most people, they get blindsided. There's countless threads where passengers talk about things like getting arrested at a port of call and having a gun in their bag. And it's shocking but true, but some countries will lock you up over one mistake. And even if it was legal back home, but guess what? You have it there. And there's another reported case where a grandmother was arrested in the Bahamas after a loaded gun and ammo were found while she was on a Royal Caribbean cruise docked there. So she wasn't back in Florida. She was in the Bahamas under Bahamian law, dealing with Bahamian consequences. And that's exactly why foreign ports are a jurisdiction trap for people who think that, well, hey, we left from Fort Lauderdale, we left from Miami, right? They don't really care, okay? So I know the old adage of, well, what happens on the cruise stays on the cruise, but not so fast, my friend, because international waters are far from lawless. And in reality, international waters means more laws, more agencies, and more complexity. So let's connect this to real life. Well, who shows up? So cruise security, they're not police, but they act like professional evidence collectors. They secure rooms, they separate people, they write reports, and they preserve video. And we've even seen times, well, yes, they're going to take you down to the jail at the very bottom of the ship, and you might spend the rest of your cruise in that jail. Or they may treat your room like a jail. And they may literally have one of these cruise security officers standing outside and guarding that door and not letting you out. So you know what that means? No midnight chocolate buffet for you, my friend. Okay? You're on house arrest within your own little tiny room. Hopefully you got the balcony. Don't assume you can talk your way out of it because it's a ship. Everything you say can end up in a report. It will end up in that police report, and it's going to get forwarded and reviewed by people who are not there. So jurisdiction at sea, it's layered. The ship location, the flag, the port, and the people involved can all decide, which law enforcement authorities take the lead. Now, the next question is Florida specific. So what changes when your cruise leaves from Broward or Miami? Your case often lands in South Florida. So it's either going to be the county's state court, so such as Broward County, Miami-Dade County, or in federal court in the Southern District of Florida, because that's where you either embarked, disembarked, or got first brought back into the United States. And if you're stopped and searched at the terminal before the ship leaves the dock, like during boarding, your case can look a lot like any other Florida criminal case, where you could be dealing with these law enforcement agencies, and that means Florida charges, Florida jail, Florida bond, Florida court dates, all things that we've discussed over and over and over again on this channel. But if the conduct is tied to the voyage, out there in far yonder on the high seas, or if it happens aboard outside of the state, Florida law has a statute that extends special maritime criminal jurisdiction in certain circumstances. So when there's a Florida resident involved, or when a majority of passengers embarked, and will finally disembark in Florida. So really for these cruise ships, you got to know there's a connection. It can be pretty much anywhere in Florida, even if it happened on the high seas, far out, way out yonder, and it could be federal. Of course, the feds aren't going to take it unless it's really serious, though. And so if it's the really serious stuff is going to be serious drugs, lots of drugs, or serious guns. Other than that, they're not going to take a domestic violence. They're not going to take a little bar fight. But those will be prosecuted in Miami-Dade or in Broward. So you're typically looking at South Florida venues and South Florida judges, and this matters because how quickly you respond, who you hire, and how you protect your image becomes paramount. Now, down here in South Florida, we have a wonderful saying for years. It's, come on vacation, don't leave on probation. Now remember, if you care about your career, don't wait until the gossip hits your workplace. Now the next question is where people accidentally destroy their own case. What should you do the moment security or law enforcement approaches you on board or at the terminal? Well, the wrong answer is run. Don't run. The right answer is be calm, be respectful, say less or nothing, and get an attorney immediately. No, period, is a complete sentence. And I'm going to say it again. It's not a conversation. It's about evidence being collected. You cannot and will not be able to talk your way out of a situation at this point in time. You need to remember your rights. We've talked about this in many videos. I'm going to talk about it again. You say, look, officer, I'd love to cooperate, but unfortunately, I'm not answering any questions about my lawyer. Or, no, thank you, period. I'm invoking my right to remain silent. I don't consent to a search. Am I being detained or am I free to go? And if you are detained, again, sorry, no thank you. And you zip it. Don't help them help you. Don't answer any questions without your lawyer. And if you're with a group, don't coordinate stories. It becomes its own problem. Just less is more. No thank you. Now for managing your reputation, here's the other practical piece. Don't call 10 people from the holding area phone. Don't text your assistant a play-by-play. Don't leave voice memos explaining what happened. Those things can all become exhibits. They can all be used against you. One clean call to your lawyer is smarter than 10 emotional calls to your circle. If you are in jail, those jail calls are being recorded. And let me tell you, time and time and time again, great defense cases get lost because the client talks while they're in jail. And yes, they can translate foreign languages, so please be careful. If you're arrested on a cruise ship, your best move is respectful silence, immediate legal representation, because every word you volunteer becomes part of the case. Now let's go into the big recap. What gets people arrested on cruises more than anything else? The fun stuff: drugs, violence, and sex crimes. Who has jurisdiction out in international waters? Well, it depends on where the crime occurred, but it could be a mix of local, federal, and international law enforcement. What changes when your cruise departs from South Florida ports? Well, you're going to be looking typically at South Florida venues and South Florida judges. And having a lawyer that understands how to navigate your specific jurisdiction is crucial. What should you do the moment security or the police approach you? Be calm, polite, say less, no thank you, and you get an attorney immediately. It's not a conversation. It's evidence being collected. And just simply don't answer the questions. Get a lawyer. And what does court cases look like once you're back in Florida? Well, you got court, first appearance, bond issues. These news media outlets move fast. They're there at every single first appearance every day, trolling, looking for news stories. Finding a criminal defense lawyer that understands the law, the legal landscape, as well as media and public relations can make or break your reputation. So if you want a simple rule to keep you safe, it's this: don't bring anything you wouldn't bring through an airport. If something goes sideways, you stop talking, you get a lawyer fast. And in the next video, I'm going to break it all down: what to do if cruise security wants to search your cabin, your phone, or your group chat. Your rights are your only shield. You need to use them, and we will see you in the next video.